August 10th, 1944, 02:17 a.m., outside Avranches, France. The night does not sleep. It hums. Low at first, then growing, a vibration that travels through wet Normandy soil and into the boots of a German sentry crouched beside a hedgerow. He frowns. It is not artillery, not aircraft. It is engines. Hundreds of them. Beyond the black tree line, faint beams flicker, covered headlights cutting narrow tunnels through dust. A column snakes along the road, then another and another. The sentry whispers into his field phone, his voice tight. "Herr Leutnant, they are moving again." Miles away, inside a dim operations room lit by a single hanging bulb, General der Panzergruppe Heinrich Eberbach leans over a map table. Red pins, blue arrows, the Falaise pocket forming like a tightening fist. He has panthers, he has guns, he has men. What he does not have is fuel. Another aide steps in. "Herr General," reports from the front, American units advancing again near Le Mans. Eberbach's jaw tightens. "Advancing? At night?" "Yes, Herr General." He steps outside, and for the first time, he hears it too. The hum. Not tanks, not tracked armor grinding forward. Wheels. Thousands of wheels. You can almost smell it. Hot oil, gasoline, dust rising in waves beneath overloaded axles. The American Third Army under Lieutenant General George S. Patton is breaking out of Normandy like a flood bursting through cracked stone. But it is not the tanks that make the difference. It is what follows them. Behind every Sherman, behind every half-track, behind every infantry advance, there is a river of trucks. 2.5-ton GMC CCWKWs, Studebakers, Dodges, endless olive drab bodies bouncing over cratered roads, drivers hunched forward, sleeves rolled, cigarettes glowing in the dark. They are not glamorous. They do not fire shells, but they do not stop. Back in his headquarters, General Omar Bradley studies the situation calmly. The breakout from Operation Cobra has shattered German defensive lines west of Saint-Lô. The Luftwaffe is barely visible in the sky. German reserves are thin. Bradley knows something his opponents are only beginning to understand. Speed is no longer limited by horses or railways. It is limited by gasoline. And America has plenty of that. The German problem is simple and suffocating. Panzer divisions like the 2nd SS Panzer das Reich and the 116th Panzer Division still possess lethal Panthers and Panzer IVs. Their 75mm and 88mm guns can rip through Sherman armor at range. But those machines drink fuel like dying men drink water. And their supply lines have been bombed relentlessly by Allied air power. Rail hubs destroyed, bridges collapsed, convoys strafed. When a Panther runs dry, it becomes 45 tons of immobile steel, a monument to logistics failure. Meanwhile, on the American side, something unprecedented is unfolding. A system. Improvised at first, then expanded, then perfected. It will soon earn a name whispered by drivers who barely sleep. The Red Ball Express. But on this night, August 10th, it is simply motion. Convoys running 24 hours a day. Priority routes cleared exclusively for supply trucks. Military police waving them through intersections. Drivers instructed not to stop for anything short of mechanical failure. The goal is simple. Keep Patton moving at any cost. Inside a Panther tank parked near Argenton, a young German crewman named Kurt listens to the distant engine noise. He glances at the fuel gauge. nearly empty. They have been ordered to hold position until resupplied. Resupplied with what? The radio crackles, confused reports, Americans advancing faster than predicted, infantry falling back, flanks exposed. Reinman whispers, almost to himself, "How are they still moving?" His commander does not answer, because he does not know either. What German generals are beginning to grasp, slowly, painfully, is that this is not a battle of guns anymore. It is a battle of endurance. And endurance belongs to the side that can move tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. The Americans are not just attacking, they are advancing faster than German calculations allow. Panzer doctrine was built around maneuver warfare, blitzkrieg, rapid concentration of force. But now the Germans are the ones immobilized, waiting, watching, listening to engines in the dark. By dawn, reconnaissance reports confirm it. American armored columns have bypassed strong points entirely, fuel and ammunition arriving faster than German counterattacks can organize. Entire sectors are collapsing not because they were overwhelmed by firepower, but because they were outpaced. Eberbach stares at the latest map update, blue arrows stretching deeper into France, too deep, too fast. He murmurs quietly, "This is not normal." No, it isn't. And what he is about to learn about American logistics will shake the very foundation of German operational thinking. Because those engines in the night, they are only the beginning.
By mid-morning, the dust over western France no longer settles. It hangs. A brown haze over narrow roads, once meant for horse carts and milk wagons. Now they carry something else entirely, a mechanical migration. American trucks move bumper to bumper, canvas flaps snapping in the wind, each one stenciled with white stars, each one heavy with jerry cans, artillery shells, crates of .30 caliber ammunition, rations, spare parts, fuel drums. Fuel for tanks. Fuel for war. Near Charter, a German reconnaissance officer peers through binoculars from a church tower. He expects armor. Instead, he sees trucks, columns of them, endless. He lowers the glasses slowly. They are not slowing down. Back at headquarters, the report lands in front of General Eberbach. Not tanks, not infantry assaults, trucks. More trucks than his staff can count. What the German command structure does not yet understand is that this is no accident. On August 15, 1944, the U.S. Army formally designates a massive supply operation, the Red Ball Express, named for the red markings once used by railroads to indicate priority freight. Now the priority is gasoline. The rules are simple. No civilian traffic, no unnecessary stops, no delays. Keep moving. Nearly 6,000 trucks will operate daily at peak capacity. Some routes stretch over 300 miles. Drivers rotate in brutal shifts, sometimes 20 hours at the wheel. Most of them are young. Many are African American soldiers serving in segregated units, tasked with the lifeline of an entire army. They do not fire the cannons, but without them, the cannons fall silent. In a dusty clearing outside Le Mans, General George S. Patton paces beside his command vehicle. He wants to push east, hard, faster than doctrine suggests. His Third Army is hungry for pursuit. But Patton knows a single truth above all others. A tank without fuel is just a pillbox. He calls Bradley. "How long can you keep me moving?" Bradley answers calmly, "As long as the trucks don't stop." Inside one of those trucks, Private First Class James Holloway grips the steering wheel with blistered hands. His convoy hasn't stopped in 14 hours. Headlights dimmed, convoy spacing tight.
The road ahead is chaos, bomb craters, broken fences, refugees moving aside as olive-drab giants roar past. He wipes sweat from his brow. He knows if he falls asleep for even a second, the truck behind him will slam into his tailgate. So he keeps going, because somewhere ahead, a Sherman tank waits for his cargo, and that Sherman will move the line forward another mile, and another, and another. Meanwhile, German Panthers sit camouflaged beneath tree cover, their engines cold, their crews waiting for resupply convoys that may never arrive. Allied fighter bombers prowl the skies, P-47 Thunderbolts diving on any movement spotted along French roads. Fuel trains destroyed, bridges demolished, horse-drawn wagons bombed. The German supply system, once the backbone of blitzkrieg, is unraveling. Panzer divisions were designed for short, sharp offensives, not prolonged retreats under constant air attack. At Army Group B headquarters, Field Marshal Günther von Klug reviews the numbers. Fuel allocations are slashed, reserves nearly gone. He circles units on the map that report immobilized armor. One aide dares to ask, "Herr Field Marshal, how are the Americans sustaining this tempo?" Von Klug does not respond immediately, because the answer is humiliating. They are outproducing, outtransporting, and outorganizing Germany, not with brilliance, with volume, with scale, with trucks. The psychological shift begins quietly. German commanders were trained to calculate based on rail timetables and supply depots. They expected pauses in the Allied advance, time to regroup, time to counterattack. Instead, every time they believe the Americans must halt to refuel, another column appears, another advance begins, another breakthrough widens. It is not dramatic, it is relentless, like water eroding stone. In Paris, rumors spread through German administrative offices. The Americans are moving too fast. They must be overextended. They cannot sustain this. But by late August, Paris will fall, and the trucks will still be rolling. One captured German officer, interrogated by Allied intelligence, voices what others are thinking. "We planned for tanks. We did not plan for this many vehicles." This many vehicles. That is the realization forming at the highest levels. The Americans are not fighting a campaign. They are conducting a transportation operation with guns attached. By the end of August, Patton's forces have advanced nearly 600 miles in a matter of weeks. The maps no longer resemble cautious advances. They look like a collapse. And in a quiet German headquarters room, a general studies a new intelligence report. Estimated U.S. truck production for the war, over 2 million vehicles. He sets the paper down slowly. 2 million. For the first time, he understands. This is not about one battle. This is about industrial gravity, and Germany is being pulled under. But the true shock is still coming, because soon German commanders will see the numbers up close, and disbelief will turn into something far worse. September 3rd, 1944. Near the Belgian border, 0640 a.m. Fog clings low to the fields. A column of abandoned German vehicles lines the roadside like carcasses. Half-tracks, staff cars, even a Panther tilted slightly into a ditch, its turret still facing west, its barrel silent. No battle damage, no burn marks, just empty fuel tanks. An American reconnaissance jeep rolls past cautiously. The driver slows, staring at the massive Panther, 45 tons of steel, useless. He whistles softly. Ran out of gas. That's all it took. Inside a temporary command post, General Omar Bradley studies reports coming in from 1st and 3rd Army. Fuel consumption, massive. Ammunition expenditure, high. Distance covered, extraordinary. But the Red Ball Express is still delivering. Convoys are now running nearly 24 hours without pause. Over 412,000 tons of supplies moved in just 3 months. Roads wear down, tires burst, engines overheat, and yet they keep moving. Across the collapsing German front, Field Marshal Walter Model is summoned to stabilize the situation. Known as Hitler's fireman, Model specializes in desperate recoveries. He reviews the map in silence. American spearheads have outpaced German expectations by hundreds of kilometers. Panzer reserves cannot reposition fast enough. Rail lines are broken, fuel depots destroyed, Luftwaffe presence negligible. Model asks one question: how are they sustaining this rate of advance? An intelligence officer answers hesitantly: through motor transport, Herr Feldmarschall. Massive motor transport. Model frowns. Numbers. The officer clears his throat. Estimates suggest several thousand trucks operating continuously. Several thousand. Model exhales slowly. That is not logistics. That is domination. You can almost feel the shift. German doctrine had always assumed friction would slow any enemy, that supply constraints would force pauses, that exhaustion would equalize imbalance. But America's advantage is not tactical brilliance, it is capacity. The United States produces over 88,000 tanks during the war, nearly 300,000 aircraft, millions of trucks that do not require rails, trucks that can reroute instantly, trucks that do not depend on fragile European infrastructure. The German army still relies heavily on horses, over 600,000 of them in 1944. Horses against gasoline and rubber. In a captured German staff diary later recovered by Allied forces, one line stands out: the Americans advance not because they are superior soldiers, but because they are never empty. Never empty. That is the nightmare, because a tank division without fuel is trapped in time. An American division without fuel simply waits, and then the trucks arrive. Near Aachen, German defenders prepare positions, convinced the Americans must soon pause. Surely their supply lines are stretched too thin. Surely their advance will outrun their gasoline. But just beyond the horizon, engines growl again. Convoys rerouted, fuel drums stacked high, drivers exhausted but determined. And with every delivery, the American front surges forward another mile, another town, another river crossed. In Berlin, reports reach the high command. Production shortfalls, fuel crisis, Romanian oil fields threatened. The numbers no longer add up. Adolf Hitler demands counteroffensives, but generals exchange glances. They know something he refuses to accept. You cannot counterattack without movement, and movement requires fuel. For the first time, German commanders confront a truth that cuts deeper than any artillery barrage. The United States is not fighting with divisions, it is fighting with an economy, and that economy is moving on wheels. The shock is no longer about speed, it is about scale, and scale is not something Germany can suddenly manufacture. As autumn approaches, the American advance slows, not because of German resistance, but because even the Red Ball Express is nearing its limits. Fuel depots empty faster than they can be refilled from the beaches. Ports are still damaged, pipelines not yet complete. For the first time since Normandy, Patton feels the strain. The trucks are working beyond exhaustion. And somewhere in the German command structure, a desperate idea begins to form. If they cannot outproduce America, perhaps they can strike where the trucks are weakest. A gamble, a final attempt to break the river of steel. Winter is coming, and with it, one last roll of the dice.
December 16th, 1944, 05:30 a.m., the Ardennes Forest. Snow muffles the world. It deadens footsteps, swallows sound, hides movement. In the frozen darkness, German infantry crouch silently, breath fogging the air. Tank engines idle beneath camouflage nets. Panthers, tigers, king tigers. The last fuel reserves the Reich can scrape together have been poured into one place, one chance. Operation Wacht am Rhein. The objective is simple in theory and impossible in reality. Smash through the thinly held American lines, race to Antwerp, sever the supply arteries, and starve the Allied advance. Starve the trucks. Field Marshal Walter Model knows what this really is. Not a comeback, a disruption. If the Americans are beaten by logistics, then logistics must be attacked. Fuel dumps, truck routes, bridges, road junctions. If the river of steel can be cut, even briefly, the American advance might choke. Might. The initial assault achieves surprise. Snow grounds Allied aircraft. American units are scattered. Some are green, others exhausted. German spearheads punch through fog and disbelief. Panzer columns surge forward. For a moment, it looks like 1940 again. But then, reality intrudes. German fuel trucks cannot keep pace. Bridges are too narrow, roads are iced over, traffic jams form, vehicles stall, engines freeze, fuel consumption skyrockets, and every kilometer forward burns irreplaceable gasoline. American fuel dumps are overrun in places, and German crews cheer as they refuel from captured stocks. But it is not enough. It is never enough. Inside a Sherman tank near Bastogne, an American crew listens to distant artillery. Snow piles on the hull. The radio crackles. Supplies are tight. But then, like clockwork, trucks arrive. Chains clattering on tires, drivers slipping on ice, fuel drums rolled off frozen beds. The lifeline holds. In Bastogne, surrounded and under siege, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe receives the German surrender demand. His reply is short: nuts. But behind the bravado lies confidence, confidence born of experience. The Americans have been short before, and every time the trucks came through. Meanwhile, German units begin to stall. Panthers abandoned again, tigers immobilized once more. The same story repeats, not because of enemy fire, but empty tanks. American air power returns as the skies clear. P-47s roar down icy roads, convoys destroyed, fuel trucks incinerated, columns shredded. The gamble bleeds out. By January, the offensive collapses. The last German fuel reserves are gone. The last strategic initiative is spent. And the Red Ball Express? It adapts, reroutes, pushes through snow and shell fire, because it is not a single road, it is a system. In the aftermath, German commanders review the failure. They did not lose because of inferior tactics. They did not lose because of cowardice. They lost because they could not move, because they could not feed engines fast enough, because the Americans could replace trucks faster than Germany could replace fuel. One general reportedly sums it up bitterly. We were fighting divisions, they were fighting distance. By the spring of 1945, American trucks roll across the Rhine, then deeper, then east. No pause, no recovery, just movement. The war in Europe will end not with a single decisive tank battle, but with an exhausted army unable to move, unable to maneuver, unable to escape the weight of an industrial avalanche on wheels.
And as American columns roll into the heart of Germany, past factories now silent and rail yards in ruins, the truth becomes undeniable. This war was never decided by tanks alone. It was decided by what followed them: fuel, rubber, steel, and millions of tires turning day and night.